An American reporter was wrestled out of President Donald Trump's joint press conference with Vladimir Putin on Monday. It was all due to the 4 words which were written on a makeshift sign the journalist was holding. Sam Husseini, an op-ed reporter for the liberal publication The Nation, was forcibly removed from President Donald Trump's joint press conference with Vladimir Putin before the two world leaders even began speaking on Monday. Husseini is also the communications director of the Institute for Public Accuracy, a Washington, D.C. based non-profit group that promotes progressive experts as sources for journalists. Sam Husseini, communications director of the Institute for Public Accuracy, received press accreditation from The Nation to cover the summit between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, said The Nation Vice President of Communications Graf. At a time when this administration consistently denigrates the media, we're troubled by reports that he was forcibly removed from the press conference before the two leaders began to take questions. This is a developing situation that we will be following closely. It appears that Husseini was removed from the presser before it even began due to a makeshift sign he brought with him, which read, "Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty." According to one fellow reporter, Husseini had planned to use the sign to grab the attention of Trump and Putin, whom he hoped would call on him for a question. But, when security tried to remove Husseini's sign, he refused to relinquish it and was ultimately wrestled out of the room. An accredited journalist was just wrestled out of the Helsinki summit press conference by security. He had made a sign that said Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, hoping that holding it up would get the attention of Trump and Putin so he could ask a question about it. Mark McKinnon, at Mark McKinnon, July 16, 2018. An op-ed writer for the publication The Nation was forcibly removed from a press briefing between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin on Monday, before the two leaders were set to take questions from the press. The man removed was Sam Husseini, said Vice President of Communications at The Nation Graf. Husseini is the communications director of the Institute for Public Accuracy, a Washington, D.C. based non-profit that promotes progressive experts as alternative sources for media reporters. Husseini was holding a sign that Russian authorities reportedly called a malicious item. He had a sign that said Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty. The press conference follows a one-on-one meeting between the two leaders in Helsinki, Finland, just 3 days after the Trump administration's Justice Department charged 12 Russian government officials with interfering in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Source: CNBC. Husseini appears to have somewhat of a checkered past as far as his career is concerned. His stunt in Helsinki wasn't the first time he used exhibitionism to garner the attention of world leaders. Husseini's online resume notes that he regularly attended news conferences at the National Press Club and other venues in D.C., questioning numerous officials including NATO spokesperson Jamie Shea, State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert, then Speaker Nancy Pelosi, journalist Stan Rather and Judith Miller, and former head of Saudi intelligence ambassador Turki bin Faisal Al Saud. The questioning of the former led to a suspension by the executive director of the National Press Club, which was overturned by the Ethics Committee. According to Daily Mail, in 2011, he was suspended by the National Press Club's executive director after he asked a Turk a question about the legitimacy of the Saudi regime at an event at the club. But the Ethics Committee of the club overturned the suspension. It would seem that this entire embarrassing situation could have been avoided had Husseini simply given his sign to security and waited to be called on like the rest of the reporters in the room. This wouldn't be the first time a member of the press refused to show the necessary amount of decorum, though. In fact, we're getting quite used to this behavior.